Hare. Gopijana Ballabha Giridharadhari Yasodanandana Brajajanarandana Yasodanandana Brajajanarandana Yamuna Tira Varnachari Yamuna Tira Varnachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Jaya Gopi Jana Ballabha Giridharadhari Jaya Yasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamuna Tira Varnachari Yamuna Tira Varnachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Ballabha Giridharadhari Jaya Yasodanandana Brajajanarandana Yamuna Tira Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Radha Ballabha Bhagavan Ki Jai Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Ki Jai Gauda Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we're reading from the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 11, Text 1. Sri Sukuruvacha Shrudvehitam sadhu sabha sabhajitam Mahatama granya urukramatmanaha Yudhisthiro daicha pate mudanvitaha Papracha bhuyastanayam svayambhuvaha Sri Sukuruvacha Shrudvehitam sadhu sabha sabhajitam Mahatama granya urukramatmanaha Yudhisthiro daicha pate mudanvitaha Papracha bhuyastanayam svayambhuvaha. Someone else? Sri Sukuruvacha Sudvehitam sadhu sabha sabhajitam Atmana granya urukramatmanaha Sri Sukuruvacha Shrudvehitam sadhu sabha sabhajitam Mahatmana granya urukramatmanaha Yudhisthiro daicha pate mudanvitaha Prapracha bhuyastanayam svayambhuvaha. Vaishnavis. Sri Sukuruvacha Shrudvehitam sadhu sabha sabhajitam Mahatmana granya urukramatmanaha Yudhisthiro daicha pate mudanvitaha Prapracha bhuyastanayam svayambhuvaha. Word for word. Sri Sukuruvacha Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, Shrutva, hearing, Ihitam, the narration, Sadhu Sabha Sabhajitam, which is discussed in assemblies of great devotees, like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Mahatama Agranya, the best of the saintly persons. Urukrama Atmana, of he, Prahlad Maharaj, whose mind is always engaged upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who always acts uncommonly. Yudhisthira, King Yudhisthira, Daityapate, of the master of the demons, Mura Anvita, in a pleasing mood, Paprachcha, inquired, Bhuya, again, Tanayam, under the sun, Svayambhuva, of Lord Brahma. Translation. Sukadeva Goswami continued, after hearing about the activities and character of Prahlad Maharaj, which are adored and discussed among great personalities like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, Yudhisthira Maharaj, the most respectful king among exalted personalities, again inquired from the great saint Narad Muni in a mood of great pleasure. We'll read also text 2, 11.2. Sri Yudhisthira Uvacha Bhagavan Srotum Ichchami Nrinam Dharmam Sanatanam Varnasrama Charayutam Yat Puman Vindate Param. Translation: Maharaj Yudhisthira said, "My dear Lord, I wish to hear from you about the principles of religion by which one can attain the ultimate goal of life, devotional service. I wish to hear about the general occupational duties of human society and the system of social and spiritual advancement known as Varnasrama Dharma." Purport: Sanatana Dharma means devotional service. The word Sanatana refers to that which is eternal, which does not change but continues in all circumstances. We have several times explained what the eternal occupational duty of the living being is. Indeed, it has been explained by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jivera Svarupaya Krishnera Nityadasa. The real occupational duty of the living entity is to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even if one prefers to deviate from this principle, he remains a servant because that is his eternal position, but one serves Maya, the illusory material energy. The Krishna consciousness movement, therefore, is an attempt to guide human society to serving the personality of Godhead instead of serving the material world with no real profit. Our actual experience is that every man, animal, bird and beast, indeed every living entity, is engaged in rendering service. Even though one's body or one's superficial religion may change, every living entity is always engaged in the service of someone. Therefore, the mentality of service is called the eternal occupational duty. This eternal occupational duty can be organized through the institution of Varnasrama, in which there are 4 Varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Sudra, and 4 ashramas, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyasa. Thus, Yudhisthira Maharaj inquired from Narad Muni about the principles of Sanatana Dharma for the benefit of human society. So this chapter, Narad Muni is being asked by Yudhisthira Maharaj to start talking about the different, the perfect classes of people, and what is the different orders, and what are the different ashrams. So first of all, of course, Yudhisthira Maharaj was very satisfied and very blissful. Here it said, in the mood of great pleasure, prapachabhuyas tanayam svayambhuva. Very blissful that he had heard about the great person, the great personality of Prahlad Maharaj. And Narad Muni gave a nice description, so Yudhisthira Maharaj is feeling very, very happy to hear that. And then, of course, we were just reading about the Tripura Asuras, and the pastime of Lord Shiva. And so this story is told. So any story, any leela like that, it affords the devotee great pleasure. Tushanticha ramanticha. So this is something that devotees, they're very pleasure seeking, and their pleasure is derived from anything that has to do with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here, in the next verse, Bhagavan Srotram Ichchami. Now, as Yudhisthira Maharaj is inquiring about Sanatana Dharma, and he Nrinam Dharmam Sanatanam, and he also inquires about Varnasrama, Yat Puman Vindide Param. Now, there are different aspects. There are generally in life, one has to go by Sanatana Dharma and Svadharma. Svadharma means Varnasrama Dharma. This is Svadharma. Occupational activities, Svadharma. What is your Svadharma? What is your occupation? What status of life are you living? Are you a student? Are you family? Are you retired? Or are you totally renounced from the world and practicing detachment? So this is Varna and Ashram, and Chatu Vanya Maya Shrishtam Guna Kama Vibhagasa Tashyakatanam Apimam Vidyakatanam Avyayam. This system of Varna Ashrama is originally given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and is meant for regulating especially human activities here on earth, so that one becomes steady and one can lift themselves up from Tamaguna and Rajaguna. Tamaguna and Rajaguna is very prominent in Kali Yuga, and because of the Rajaguna and the Tamaguna, one is very unsteady, or one is succumbing to the lower qualities of one's nature. One is acting with anger, one is acting with greed, one is acting with lust, and so on and so forth. So we see the whole world practically these days is moving on the lower qualities of the human being, and then becoming more and more entangled in the complexities of the material life. So Varnashram is meant. Now within Varna and Ashrama, there is a certain regulations for each Varna, for example, and each Ashram. And indeed, Anad Bhavanti Bhutani, Krishna says that if one wants a peaceful life in the world, even to get rain, that has to come from yajna. And a yajna is born of the prescribed duties. So all is connected. Devan bhavayata te deva bhavayantava. When you please the devas who are in charge of the different necessities of life, they will please you, and you can live relatively in a prosperous way. So everything is related. So even the rain, if you want food, if people want to have nice supply of food, then there must be rain. There must be rain to get food. There can be no food practically in a desert. You have to have the rain. But we've seen even in the desert, if somehow or other water is coming, then all of a sudden food can be grown. We see in this country, practically this country is 2/3 desert. And all different types of desert. You have in it rock desert, sand desert, little bush desert, so many different categories they have of desert. And mainly everyone lives in the cities, hardly anyone's living in the desert. Why? Because it's very, very hard to live in the desert. Who can live in the desert? It's very hard to get the food, and so on and so forth. But there are parts, just like we used to have one farm, New Gordadesha, which was out near past Mildura. That was a very deserty kind of area. But that whole area there, going over to the South Australian border also, that's with irrigation. They used to get the irrigation from the Murray River. And then so many nice things can grow with a little bit of water. You can grow the grapes, so that area is very famous for the grapes, for the stone fruits, the peaches, the plums, the apricots, very, very famous. Apples can grow there. So many things. I know as a student I went fruit picking in that area, but that area is very dry. And as you go further out, Mildura, where we were living there, New Gordon, it's very, very dry. You know, when I went there, I thought it was so dry and so barren, I thought it was like being on the moon. But then with good irrigation, we were able to grow so many different types. We grew the watermelon and the rock melon. We had to put a big fence up because the kangaroos, they were also feeling very hungry, and they used to come in and eat all the rock melon and the watermelon and anything we grew. They practically came in, and they would use all scarecrows and things, but it didn't work. And so finally, Krodeshwara and Ushapati had to build this huge high fence. I think it went from a long, big, huge, to keep the, and had to go down in the earth a long way because they dig also, and also other things dig underneath. So I had to go down a long way, I had to go high because kangaroos can jump. And so I had to go high, more than 2 meters high. And it took them months and months and months to build that fence. It was like over 1 kilometer of fence. Maybe, I think I seem to remember, like 2 kilometers of fence, because they needed a big area inside. And with so many different types of kangaroos and rabbits and this and that and other thing, wombats, all different types of animals that come in and eat everything. Of course, animals have to eat, but in a dry, very dry climate, it's very hard to grow anything because the animals eat. So there was a very nice farm transformed after that, even keeping the cows, even keeping one bull. What was that bull's name? Nandi? There was one big bull. And we grew a rock melon and, as I said, watermelon. And we used to sometimes, and we used to actually grow so much that we used to come, they used to bring it to the market here, the Victoria market here in Melbourne. I used to get one truck and put the rock melon inside and different types of melon and the watermelon and sell in the market. We had so much when they came, there was so much. And I remember we used to feed this big bull, huge, gigantic bull, rock melon. And with one bite, he would eat the whole thing. We'd call him, and then we'd offer, and he'd open his mouth, and we would just throw it inside. You know? Even we threw one watermelon, and he bit it, and of course he cut it in half, and was going everywhere, but he very much enjoyed watermelon and rock melon. So I tell this story because anything can be transformed with a little bit of water. But water is born of yajna. Yajna. And where does the yajna and all the rituals for pleasing the devas that supply all the necessary, how does that come? From Varna and Ashrama. Chatu Vanyamash. It comes from prescribed duties. And so therefore it's very important, because if you're following Varnasrama very nicely, then the Brahmanas will be there. They are learning. The Brahmanas community, generally, they are to be maintained by the other communities because they are always studying. They are always doing the yajna and the rituals. They're always teaching. They are full-time engaged. They can't go for the occupation outside. Their business is to go everywhere and benefit the people by performing yajna and different ceremonies during the year. There's so many samskaras, you know, everyone knows the samskara, and so many things like that, that so many brahmanas, vipras are needed to go around. Also they would become a little learned in different things like medicine. There was no need in the past times of big huge hospitals because there was just done, the brahmanas would go, people would live more healthy, of course. And then the brahmanas, if there's some illness, the brahmanas would go around, they knew some medicine and they would help the family. So brahmanas were very much needed, as are all the varnas, brahmanas, and then they were given some donation by the other members of the community so they could live all right. But now, of course, brahmanas, so those who were born in the Brahmin families don't so much follow brahmana life. They are generally going after occupation, making money. But Brahmana, of course, the Brahmana community needs to be supported by the other members. And so if they're not supported, then they have to think about how to make money for the family. So it was a very good system, and the system came from Krishna. Just like this world is coming from Krishna, and through his different expansions and energies. And so Krishna gives, of course, it's best to be in the spiritual world, liberated, but one has desire, so Krishna arranges this world. It's not ultimate, not ideal place, but if you want like that, then live here. But here is some procedures to follow, so you can live here relatively, because no one can have full pleasure in the material world. There's birth, there's death, there's different sufferings and so on. So you can't live totally peacefully, totally happy. But nevertheless, relatively, you can live relatively peaceful. So Krishna has given system. If you want to live relatively peaceful, follow this Varna and Ashram. Varnasrama charvata purisheda puman Vishnu aradhyate pantananya toshakaranam. This is one verse from the Shastra. That yes, to attain the perfection of life, if one can follow whatever you're qualified, Brahmana or Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, and a different ashram. So each one has there's general principles for all of them, and each one will have also their specific principles, and there will be rituals, ceremonies, and yagyas to be performed. When these things are followed, then nice rains come, and not excessive, not too hot, not too cold. Now we have so much excessive everything, excessive, extreme. I have read that in the Vedic times, when everything was going on nicely, everything was followed, then the rains would come at night time very nicely, and when everyone was sleeping, not disturbing, they would come at night time, so they would water the fields, and in the morning, by the morning they would stop. And then the farmers would go out and they could work in the field, getting the good water supply from the rains. So this is so when everything is nicely performed, it comes like that, very, very steady, and not too extreme. It doesn't become, sun doesn't become too hot, it doesn't become too cold. But we find now, of course, all these different disturbances because people aren't following nice life in the yagya, performing samskara, performing any of these things. So we have extreme. When rain comes, too much, flooding, or drought, no rain. And so we know all the countries of the world, same. In India, like just recently, big floods, the cyclone came, hurricane came, and Chennai was flooded under the water. Our temple also was flooded. Some pictures I saw, the temple was under the water because the big flood came. And we know in this country so many floods come, especially in the north, but everywhere. When was it? Last year or the year before was a big rain and floods everywhere all over the country. Then there's drought, then there's fire, then there's volcanoes, so many things. All these things are results and reactions to very materialistic activity, and especially sinful activities. This is very prevalent. So people are living their life in the lower way. They're supposed to be human beings, and as human beings we have responsibility, and we're meant to follow certain procedures. Just like when you come to any country, you have to learn what are the laws of that country. You can't say, you can't plead ignorance. I came this country, I came from America, and I'm driving the car here, I'll drive like I drive in America over there. They drive on the right-hand side, over here we drive on the left-hand side. So if you come here and then drive on the right side and you cause crash, you will be prosecuted. But I didn't know, I'm from America. No, when you come here you have to find out how they do things here. India is same as here, no problem. But most countries of the world, they drive on the other side of the road. So this is just one example. So you have to find out. You can't not find out. What is a law in one country may be acceptable in another country. So you should find out. Actually, when you're traveling, there's a lot of travel advice given by the governments and different departments. If you go this country, you should know these things. Before you go there, you should find out these things, because if you go there and you think it's all right to do this and that, but in that country is against the law, and then you'll get into trouble, isn't it? So you have to find out beforehand, before you go there, otherwise you get into trouble. You could be arrested, you can cause some problem, some difficulty, and all sorts of circumstances can arise. So too, when the living entity comes to the material world, the living entity, of course in the animal life, how they can understand anything, but in the human life we have to find out, okay, how am I supposed to live here? I'm here, how am I supposed to live? What is my duties? What are my obligations? What is the supreme instruction for these things? Now Prabhupada does say here in the purport that these principles, he says here, what does he say? The Krishna conscious movement is trying to spread these principles as mentioned here. The Krishna conscious movement, therefore, is an attempt to guide human society to serving the personality of God, and instead of serving the material world with no real profit. So people have to have some basic education about what is spiritual life. That is what is lacking in today's society. What is the basic education? Basic education means books like Bhaktivedanta, Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. I think was it yesterday's class or the previous class? Prabhupada was saying that we need to. This Krishna conscious movement is spreading the teachings of Krishna in the form of Bhagavad Gita. Everyone in the world should try to understand the books of Bhagavad Gita. If you want to advance spiritually, one needs a lot of knowledge from books like Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. So Prabhupada thought that these books are so important. All our Gaudiya Vaishnavas are saying these things are very, very important, these books. And so the Krishna conscious movement is trying to teach society. Of course, whether or not society will take up the Varnasrama system, Prabhupada had an idea that it would be good if they could. And he had an idea, actually, at least in some of the smaller countries, when he went to Fiji. He was meeting with the big leaders there. He went to Mauritius also. He met with the Prime Minister. I think he met with the Prime Minister also of Fiji. So he was talking about the Hindu Dharma, and especially Varnasrama Dharma, how in your country he would say to them, you should try to introduce this way of living again, because this is authorized by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is the most ideal way for living in the material world. So he would very much like to encourage them. And he was hopeful, at least in the small countries, if they could take it up, they could be an example to the bigger countries. Let us try first, he told his disciples, let us try first some of the smaller countries, and if we can convince the leaders there, then maybe they can take it up and institute a system like this. And if it's followed nicely and is working nicely, other countries will see, oh, this is a very nice system, and they may be able to take it up. That was Prabhupada's idea, at least like that. But he was speaking about it everywhere. Of course, in India, I think it's still, at least the caste system is illegal. But that became perverted of the actual Varnashram system. The caste means by your birth you are designated. But Chatuvanya Mayasha Guna Karma Vibhaka, Krishna never says by birth. Chatuvanya Mayasha Guna Karma. He says, what is your qualities? Guna, and what are your activities? This is how it is judged. Sometimes you may be born in Brahmana family or Kshatriya Vaishya, and maybe you will become a Brahmana, but not immediately. You have to be observed. If you're born your father's High Court judge, you won't be accepted High Court judge immediately. You have to do the training, you have to do everything like that, and then maybe you'll be considered for to become a lawyer, to become magistrate, to become judge, especially High Court judge. Not immediately. Just because you're born in the family doesn't mean that it's bestowed upon you High Court judge. Yeah, the father High Court judge, he must be a High Court judge. So this is a perversion of the system. Perversion of the, and it was corrupted and it was abused. So therefore, we can understand in one sense why India banned this, because there's too much abuse was going on. But we are not advocating a caste system. We are advocating Varna and Ashrama proper, according to it. Now we know in there are many stories in the Bhagavatam where someone was changing their Varna because of their activities and their qualities. These things were observed, of course, by the parents, and they would be at Vipras in to do that astrological chart to see what are the proclivities and what is the qualities. And those who are gurus, the Brahmanas and the gurus, they would observe the children for some time and see what is the qualities of these children, and best to go in this field, or best to go in this field, in this ashram, and so on and so forth. So many were consulted, and it was ascertained in that way, and not just by the birth. Of course, sometimes by the birth you've got good opportunity, you may also become, but it has to be seen. And so we see that just like in the example of Vishvamitra, you can read, he was a Kshatriya before, but there was some altercation between Vishvamitra before, when he was Kshatriya, and Vashishta over one cow, and there was some fighting. Vashishta defeated Vishvamitra, and Vishvamitra thought, well, what is the use of my being a Kshatriya, the supreme ruler, when I can so easily be defeated by this Brahmana? Let me become a Brahmana. So he did tapasya for a long time, long time, this story is there, and gradually, after some time, he was able to change from Kshatriya to Brahmana. Or sometimes one can go from Brahmana to Sudra. Just like we know there's one story in the heavenly planets, Brihaspati, he is the priest of the Devas. The priest of the Devas, very high position, very learned scholar, Brihaspati. And his son, he had one tola, he had one school. Many children used to come to the school, get the proper education according to the Vedic principles. And his sons also went to the school, but it was reported to him that his sons were missing many classes. So he chastised his boys, no, don't go just playing and missing the classes, you have to go to the school. Your playing can be done after the school, not during the school. And so they would follow again, but then they were missing the class. So this went on for some time, and he became upset with them. He became angry with them because they weren't listening, and he cursed them. They especially liked to do the wrestling and sporting like that. He said, you like wrestling so much, become wrestlers. From the Brahmana family of Brihaspati, they became wrestlers, and they were very sorry. They begged forgiveness from their father and said, oh no, I cannot, I've pronounced this curse, you have to accept it, but you will become wrestlers in the Krishna Leela. And so that happened, and they became wrestlers. They were known as Chanura and Mushtika. You know, when Krishna and Balaram came to Mathura, and then Kamsa had arranged Kuvalya Pida and to kill Krishna, the big elephant, and then of course the Chanura, Mushtika, and other wrestlers also. There's a whole history about these other wrestlers, Tolas, and there was a few of them that came in, but after Chanura Mushtika. But anyway, this Chanura Mushtika, big, huge, strong wrestlers, they were formerly the sons of Brihaspati. So they went from Brahmana to Sudra. There are many examples. What are your qualities? What are your activities? All right, so you're Brahmana family, but you're acting like Kshatriya. Better be Kshatriya. But whatever, you have to follow that thing. And then there are samskaras. And then the samskaras, the purificatory ceremonies are there. And then the brahmanas are come, they perform many, you are the yajaman, you bring them, you arrange everything, and then they come, and then you do so many, throughout your whole life this will go on, especially grihasta. Brahmacharis have their particular, and grihastas, and vanaprasthas, and sannyas also. There are certain ceremonies and certain procedures. Everyone has. There are general for all, but there are some more specific. So this is Varnasrama. It's a very good system. One can elevate. Of course, here Yudhisthira Maharaj is asking something a little bit higher than even Varnasrama. And we know when it was Ramananda Roy was speaking with Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya said, what is the perfection of the life? And Ramananda Roy, he brought up the Varnasrama. And Lord Chaitanya said, yes, this is good, but there's something more higher. And finally, of course, they came to the eternal position of the soul, Sanatana Dharma, and then they this, but go higher. And then the relationship with the living entity, with the Lord in the Vaikuntha, yes, very good, but go more higher even. Oh, that higher, I don't know, only by your mercy can I speak something higher. And then the Krishna Loka, the relationship in the different rasas. In the Krishna Loka, one can be in the Dasya Ras, Sakya Ras, Vatsalya Ras, Madhurya. Madhurya, yes, go, this is high. Go more higher than even Madhurya. More higher than Madhurya Ras. Conjugal, what is it? I can't speak in you. Only if you give me mercy, then maybe I can say something. Then he started to talk about Radharani and her relationship with Krishna. And Lord Chaitanya, yes, now this is becoming the most high of the perfection of the existence of the living entity. So you can go more high. But generally speaking, there, as I started and say, there is the Svadharma, your occupational duties. Everyone has obligation, and when you're born in the world you have obligation to do your duties, and one has to do it to the best of their ability. This is the duty of everyone in the human form of life. But then there's Sanatana Dharma. Now Yudhisthira Maharaj is specifically asking Sanatana Dharma. What is your eternal activities? Very important. But while living in the world, generally these two go parallel to each other, just like the train track. So one is following Sanatana Dharma, the spiritual eternal activities, and simultaneously while living in the world, one follows Svadharma, occupational activities, generally under Varnasrama. So on this side this, on the other side Sanatana Dharma, together they should go. The train runs very well together. If just one track is not so good, so must need the two tracks while living in the world. Of course, when one becomes very advanced, he doesn't need so much as becoming renounced. He's just concentrating on Sanatana Dharma, maybe at the end of their life. They don't have to worry about Svadharma and all these other activities. They're concentrating on Sanatana Dharma. But Sanatana Dharma must be there. And Sanatana Dharma is the spiritual activities. For us, Gaudiya Vaishnavas generally are broken into two categories. We follow Pravritti Marga or the... what is that? Nivritti, but Nivritti Marga. But there is a Bhagavat Marg and Panchatriki Marga. And that was given, originally by the Supreme Personality of Godhead also, but expanded by Narad Muni, Narada Pancharatta. There's many Pancharattas. So rules and regulations, even on the spiritual path, because we're not very advanced yet. So we have to regulate. Now we're following maybe on the Svadharma, but even on the spiritual Sanatana Dharma, all right, you're not so advanced yet, so follow Panchatrika. Of course, before they were following the higher aspects of the Vedic Dharma, but for the Vaishnavas, we follow that given by the great Acharyas and Panchatriki Marga. And what are some rules and regulations? We were following these things mentioned in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, mentioned in Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, some of what are the rules and the regulations to follow while you're following Sanatana Dharma. Then on the other side there's Bhagavat Dharma, which is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Shmaranam, Padasevanam, Dasyam Sakyam, what is it? Vandanam, Atmani Vedanam, these things, all these different processes, hearing, chanting, remembering, and serving the lotus feet, serving the devotee, becoming the friend. So many different ways of following. This is called Bhagavat Marga. This is not dependent on rules and regulations. One can just do, but to always do it is not so easy for the conditioned soul. Even that someone who's taking up the path of spiritual life, we're still affected by our former life. So therefore, Bhagavat Dharma is there, and we have Panchatriki Marg as well. So we as Vaishnavas, we're following the both. And so all these things are given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Swarup Haya, Krishna Das. Now, in his instruction, Prabhupada quotes here, or what is the eternal occupational duty of the living entity, he quotes Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and this was given. This instruction was given by Lord Chaitanya when he was instructing Sanatana Goswami in Varanasi. He said, actually, your eternal occupational activity is that you're a dasa anuda. You're the servant of the servant of the servant of the Supreme Personality of God. That actually is your eternal occupational duty. So he was giving this instruction to Sanatana Goswami, and Prabhupada quotes it here. It's something that cannot change. It's just like the water. What is the constitutional position of the water? Water means in the natural position of the water is liquid. It's liquid. You can heat the water, it becomes steam. You can freeze the water, it becomes the ice. But if you leave it, the ice tries to come back again to liquid, and the steam also tries to come back to the liquid, because it's natural. The natural state of the water is liquid. That's the natural. So our natural state is to be the servant of Krishna. That's natural. And actually the living entity is always trying, but doing in wrong way. Just trying to do in the material world, where you are servant. But now you're serving illusion. That is the problem. You're serving illusion, your body is an illusion, all these things are illusion, mind, all illusion, all affected by illusion. But yet we're serving so many ways in the illusion, and when we do service, we become attached to this thing, that thing, the other thing, and we become more attached, one life after the other can go on ad infinitum. Hard to break it, impossible to break. Krishna says, Daivi Yesha Gunamai Mamma Maidura. It is very, you cannot overcome it. Modes of nature under Prakriti, difficult, more or less impossible. Only when you get the mercy of Krishna and his representative. Now, Prabhupada in this, he says that now all this, whether it's Vedic principles or the Dharma, anything, actually, Dhammam tu shakshat bhagavat pranitam, it only can come from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this verse is quoted in the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam when Yamaraj spoke it. Dharmam tu shakshat bhagavat pranitam nava vidu raisha napi devaha nasida mukyam chata manasha kutano vijirada charana. When there was an argument, when the Yamadutas came to get the soul of Ajamil for his sinful activities, the Vishnu Dutas came there to stop them because he chanted the name of Narayan. And so there was some discussion going on between the Vishnu Dutas and the Yamadutas, and the Yamadutas were very confused. They thought they were the supreme authority. So then they went to Yamaraj, and Yamaraj explained to them that actually, yes, there are certain religious principles, but the highest comes from God. And the Vishnu Dutas, they are directly representing God, so they have got authority over you. So more or less, he confirmed the Vishnu Dutas' position. So the Yamadutas were confused, and Yamaraj said, Dhammam tu shakshat bhagavat pranitam. Real religious principles coming from Krishna, and they are direct representatives. He said the Charanas don't know it, the Vidyadharas don't know it, high rishis don't know it. Everything comes from Krishna, and if Krishna blesses someone, then they can also give that same knowledge to the others. And this is how this is how Krishna wants the system to work, that we get it originally coming from him, and it's passed down. One has to hear very carefully, and then be following, and then be observed also. And just like anything in the world, when you go for training, architect, a lawyer, doctor, you learn you get the instructions, you get the training, but then when you go to the practice for some time, you have to go and observe before you get the full registration. So same in spiritual life. You're receiving all this instruction, and then you're following nicely, being observed. The Guru is helping you, he's very kind, and other senior Vaishnavas, the Sadhus. There's all sorts of, there's Diksha Guru, there's Shiksha Guru, all the predecessor Gurus helping us very nicely. And then things can go on. There will always be obstacles, and there may be difficulties, but they are there to help us. And so then we can go nicely. But here Yamaraj is telling, no, this is the topmost position, and only the Lord and his recognized authorities. He goes on in the next verse to give the Swayambhu Narada Sambhu, very famous verse, that there are those who are great authorities in the universe, having received this knowledge. They know what is the real religious principle. And the highest is, as Lord Chaitanya said, become the servant of the Supreme Personality. Why serve Maya when you can serve Krishna? So who would you rather pick, Maya or Krishna? Sometimes I ask the little children, even, I said, if you want to live in the world, do you want to go to be with Indra, or you want to go and be with Krishna? Which one you want? And the little children, they always say, we want to go with Krishna. You can go to be with Indra or Agni or Chandra or so many devas. You can go to Svargaloka. We want to go, so those who are devotees will always pick Krishna. Krishna is beyond the world. He's not of this world. There's no birth or death, anything. We are in our original form. So Krishna is the topmost. I always remember Prabhupada here. One time he's talking about the Bhakti Yoga being in the top. And then someone said, but there was a newcomer. Said, I've read in the Gita where the Raja Yoga, that is the king of all the yogas. And Prabhupada said, yes, that is the king, but Bhakti is the emperor. King is always subordinate to emperor. And why is Bhakti the top? Because Krishna is the top. Krishna is the top, and all are coming from him. So on this authority, I am saying this is topmost. So yes, Raj Yoga is good, so many other yogas, but the top is Bhakti, because Bhakti directly to Krishna. And why Krishna? Krishna is top. Eta Chamsap, Kalapumsa, we were reading yesterday. All emanations come from Krishna. You can go to the top, why you have to go into the others? Just like even if you're shopping for something, if you can go directly to the factory, normally you get the best position. You don't have to go through all the other middlemen and pay more. You go directly. So we are trying to go directly to Krishna. So the Prabhupada was always saying, like, why go indirect? Go direct. Krishna is making himself available, especially by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That Krishna actually before, Prabhupada had said in one lecture, Savanamam Pricha, first of all he demanded, you surrender unto me, then I will protect you and I will give you the liberation. But first of all, surrender. First of all, they said Lord Chaitanya was even more kind. He said, he didn't ask surrender, just anyone. If they were sincere, he's giving. He didn't demand you surrender, he's just giving. So that's why we're very fortunate taking birth in the movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and participating in the movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so Prabhupada says here, we should take advantage and take it ourselves, and of course try to spread it all over the world. Whoever has wants to have the listening ear, we are given. Prabhupada has told us many times before, he said that main thing for the masses is kirtan and prasadam, and then someone who's more interested, they can read our books and they can speak to devotee, and in this way we can spread the Krishna consciousness all over the world. So it was nice to hear the lengthy list of devotees who were doing the book distribution. And this morning he was reading for like 20 minutes. So many devotees are going out this month for distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. Very, very good. So if you can do like that also, that's good. That's spreading all over. Prabhupada said it's very, the best way. Lectures and are very good, but he said actually the books are better because they can take it and they can read it at home. Even sometimes, even if they are not reading it, someone else is reading it. I remember one devotee told me how he became devotee. He said he was at one party just sitting and everyone was drinking the alcohol and doing all sorts of things, but he was very bored. He was just sitting on the couch, but the couch had the cushion had a lump, and he lifted the cushion and underneath there was the Bhagavad Gita. And so he started to what's this book? And he was reading. Everyone was doing something. He was just absorbed in reading Bhagavad Gita. The whole party, he became devotee after some time. Went to try to find devotees. What is this book? And he became devotee. Just from sitting on the couch. And the Bhagavad Gita was under the cushion. So we don't know exactly when we're giving the book who ends up reading it. Maybe that person will read it, maybe. But Krishna goes where he wants to go, even in the form of the book. Even in the form of the book. And so he makes contact with those who have some interest and some sincerity. So Hare Krishna, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Does anyone want to ask any question?
What's the safest path for a devotee in a Varnasrama, well, in society? I mean, Prabhupada was saying that we need Brahmins and Kshatriyas, but also we have our natural position as in Nirvana.
You mean as our society? Our ISKCON society, yeah. Well, we are the followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we are above Varnasrama. Main thing for us is kirtan and spreading Krishna consciousness and associating. These are the main activities, but there is a Daivi Varnasrama, and that because we're not fully elevated, we can follow a particular, just like Prabhupada immediately introduced the ashrams. And brahmachari immediately introduced brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas, practically from the beginning. And of course the occupation, that he didn't, whatever occupation one was doing at that time. So just to help us become steady in our own Krishna consciousness, we can follow a particular type of occupation. But that will be according to your nature. What is good for your nature? You can take advice. What do you? Because sometimes we know ourselves, and sometimes others are observing, and we can ask them, what do you think? You think I might be best for me to do that or do this? Or we can take some advice. What is our nature? What is our occupation? So by your nature, guna, your qualities, your guna and karma, and your activity, where you tend to, what you do, what you sort of gravitate to, mainly, and your nature will bring you to that. So this is how the system worked. They would observe that, and they would see. They may try other things, but generally our nature gravitates us back to a certain type of activity that is predominant for us. So that's observed, and then the advice is given. Well, we've seen that you're very comfortable, you're very happy doing, and so you should stick to that. And then if you go in this particular position, then there are some things you can do with samskaras and all different things, purificatory, that can enhance your whole life. So this was the system of Varnasrama. The Brahmanas would be there giving advice. All right, your nature is like that. We advise you to do like that. Not that rigid caste, birth, cannot be anything else. No one else can come inside there. Just this one, and just this one, just this one, and so on and so forth. No, that is rigid. That is a corruption. But it must be. So for us as devotees, we're already following the different ashrams, whatever our nature is, and that'll be different for each individual. What is good for one, it may be not good for another. So that also under observation and take advice, and you feel yourself what is good for you. So a combination of all that. And then of course as Varna, as I said, that has to be ascertained. A little higgledy-piggledy these days. The occupation, so many different types of occupations other than... but generally we know they go into the intellectual, they go into the administrative, they go into the mercantile, and they go into the labourer class. And so maybe we don't call by name, Brahmana-Kshatriya, maybe in the West that's what they call it. They call it academic class, intellectual class, and administrative class, mercantile, business, and so someone will gravitate towards that. And someone's very happy doing labouring, and all these, everyone's needed. Everyone's needed. Administrative class needs the intellectual class to advise them. They need the mercantile, and they need the labourers. Otherwise, how society can go on. So, from time to time, anyone can do a little bit of the activity of any of these areas. But what your main activity will be nature and your qualities and actually your predominant work. So as devotees, we're doing all sorts of activity. The devotee can do anything. He's doing the puja work, and chanting, doing yajna, going to the bank. And Prabhupada always told us, just like I'm doing all the activities. You can also do that in the service of Krishna. But there may be one particular, by your nature, you're focusing on one particular activity. Now there's all sorts of opinions about how rigid our society should be about all that, that we should start labelling even devotees as, all right, you're becoming, there's difference of opinion on that. Mainly, I think at the moment the leaders are thinking they're not so rigid for devotees. But Prabhupada was very much wanting at least outside society should try to follow some Varnashram. But of course they're so materialistic, they don't know about Veda, they don't know about Varnashram. And it wouldn't be so easy to bring that about. But possibly, who knows, in the future something can happen even in the outside society. But the divisions are already there. And all the divisions are there because by nature, as I said, academic, administrative, mercantile and labourer class, and we see student class, we see married family, we see retired people, and we see just by themselves people. So they've already got it, so we just introduce some purificatory activities for them, and in a sense they're kind of at least loosely following a system of Varnashram. So there's a different opinion on all these things. Any other questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna Ramai Maharaj, as you have clarified, Krishna is the main authority and we have to follow him. And he said in Bhagavad Gita 9:22, Satatam kirtyanto mam ye jana paripaste tesham nidbhuktanam yokhima vamham. So that is the best policy, insurance policy one can give. Whatever you lack, I give you, and whatever you have, I keep it intact.
Yeah.
So that is the best policy we can have from anyone.
That is the highest principle. Actually, Prabhupada quotes Savanamam Prityagya Mam Ekam Saranam Bhaja. He says, just surrender unto me, I will protect you from all sinful actions, do not fear. He said that actually is Dharma. There's so many different Dharma principles, but he said the highest Dharma is that one. Surrender unto me. But we're lucky because even we don't like to surrender, Lord Chaitanya is coming, he's just giving. So,
well, if we are doing Satatam Kirtan, if we are doing Kirtan all the time,
yeah,
we are surrendered to Krishna.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, if we're doing so, that's Lord Chaitanya's movement. Yeah, that's Lord Chaitanya's movement. We're surrendering. So, but initially we're not surrendering, but then by doing it, we're surrendering to some degree at least, to some degree.
Thank you very much. Maharaj.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Oh, thank you.
Cocoa butter and milk, white milk chocolate.
Oh, thank you so much.
Bonaparte, but because of cocoa butter, it smells like milk chocolate, but it's Bonaparte.
Okay. Thank you so much.